take this check and never come back. You and your problem are no longer welcome here," Mrs. Harrison said coldly, slamming the grand door shut on a pregnant and weeping Chloe. The family believed they had successfully erased their mistake and protected their reputation. Little did they know, the problem they tried to bury had just multiplied by 4 and was back at Christmas. But before we see how Chloe makes them face the truth, let me know where you're watching from and what time it is. Now subscribe to the channel and let's get into the full story. If you ever tell my son about this baby, I'll make sure you're deported back to Guatemala before you can even pack your things," Robert Harrison said, his voice as cold as the winter wind blowing outside the mansion's windows. "Do I make myself clear?" Elena Morales stood in Robert's office, her hands trembling at her sides. Tears threatened to spill from her eyes, but she refused to cry in front of this man. Just yesterday, she had shared the happiest news of her life with Andrew. Today, his father was destroying her world with a few cruel words. "I have worked honestly for your family for 3 years, Mr. Harrison," Elena said, her accent thickening with emotion. Robert sat behind his massive desk, not bothering to stand. "And you've been paid well for your work. Now I'm paying you to leave." He slid a white envelope across the polished surface. $10,000. Take it and disappear." Elena didn't reach for the envelope. "Andrew has a right to know about his child. Andrew has a future that doesn't include a maid or her baby," Robert said. "He's 27 years old with a Harvard degree and a position waiting for him at my company. What do you have to offer him?" The question hung in the air like poison. 3 months earlier, Elena had been cleaning the library late one Tuesday night. The Harrison family had hosted a dinner party, and she was finishing up while they slept. The mansion was quiet except for the occasional creak of its 100-year-old wooden floors. Elena carefully dusted around the expensive artifacts that filled the room. Mr. Harrison collected rare books and historical items, each probably worth more than she earned in a year. She moved methodically, listening to her English language program through small earbuds. "The meeting is scheduled for Thursday afternoon," the recorded voice said, followed by a pause for Elena to repeat the phrase. "The meeting is scheduled for Thursday afternoon," she whispered, practicing her pronunciation. "You speak better than you think you do." Elena jumped, nearly knocking over a crystal paperweight. Andrew Harrison stood in the doorway wearing sweatpants and a t-shirt, his dark hair tousled. "I'm sorry, Mr. Andrew." "I thought everyone was asleep," Elena said, quickly removing her earbuds. Andrew walked into the room. "Just Andrew, please. And don't apologize. I couldn't sleep and came down for a book." Elena nodded and resumed dusting, acutely aware of his presence. Andrew was different from his father. Where Robert Harrison was cold and demanding, Andrew was kind and often thanked the staff for their work, behavior his parents found unnecessary. "How long have you been studying English?" Andrew asked, selecting a book from the shelf. 5 years, since before I came to America." Andrew sat in one of the leather chairs. "Why did you come here?" Elena paused, uncertain whether to engage in conversation. Housekeepers weren't supposed to share personal details with employers, but something in Andrew's expression seemed genuinely interested. "My father died when I was 19, she said. "I have 4 younger brothers and sisters in Guatemala. Someone needed to help them." "So you came alone? That must have been scary." Elena smiled slightly. "Very scary, but necessary." Over the next several weeks, Elena found herself talking with Andrew during those late hours. He would appear in whatever room she was cleaning, always with a question or observation that led to conversation. She learned he had recently finished his MBA. He learned she sent most of her salary home for her siblings' education. He told her about the pressure of joining his father's business. She told him about her village outside Guatemala City. "I miss the mountains," Elena said one night as they sat in the kitchen. She was teaching Andrew to make traditional Guatemalan chuchitos, small tamales filled with chicken and sauce. "Boston is beautiful, but different." Andrew watched her hands as she worked the masa dough. "I've never really been anywhere else. Just Europe for vacations, fancy hotels, not real places." "Someday you should see real places," Elena said, then blushed at her boldness. Andrew looked at her differently that night. When their fingers touched as she passed him a plate, neither pulled away immediately. The first time Andrew kissed her was in the garden behind the mansion. Elena had been hanging sheets to dry in the spring air. The kiss was gentle, questioning. Elena knew she should step away, but instead she kissed him back. Their relationship developed in stolen moments, late nights after his parents were asleep, early mornings before the other staff arrived. Andrew would sneak Elena into the pool house, or they would meet in the garden when she had time off. "We should go somewhere," Andrew suggested once. "A weekend away where no one knows us." Elena shook her head. "Your parents would fire me if they knew. I cannot risk my job." "I wouldn't let that happen." But they both knew the reality. Robert Harrison would never accept his Harvard-educated son dating the Guatemalan housekeeper. When Elena missed her period, she tried not to panic. When she missed a second one, she bought a test from a drugstore far from Beacon Hill. The 2 pink lines appeared almost immediately. Elena sat on the edge of her small bed in the servants' quarters, the test clutched in her shaking hand. A baby. Andrew's baby. She waited 3 days before telling him. 3 days of nausea and fear and impossible decisions. Finally, she asked to speak with him privately. They met in the garden as the sun was setting. Elena had chosen this spot carefully. Private enough for conversation, but public enough that no one would suspect anything inappropriate. "I'm pregnant," she said simply, watching his face. Andrew's expression shifted from shock to confusion to something that looked like joy. "A baby? Our baby?" Elena nodded, tears filling her eyes. "I understand if you don't want—" Andrew pulled her into his arms. "Of course I want this. I want you, Elena. I've been trying to figure out how to tell my parents about us. This just means we'll tell them sooner." "Your parents will never accept me," Elena whispered against his chest. "They'll have to," Andrew said, kissing the top of her head. "We'll figure this out together. I promise." Neither noticed the curtain moving in the second-floor window, nor Margaret Harrison's shocked face as she stepped back into the shadows. Now Elena stood in Robert's office the next morning, facing the consequences. "I love Andrew," she said quietly. Robert laughed without humor. "Love? You're smart enough to see an opportunity, I'll give you that. But it ends now. Mr. Harrison, please. My son is leaving for Europe tonight, a 6-month business assignment. He won't know about this conversation, and he won't know about your condition. If you contact him, I'll have you deported. Do you understand what that would mean for your family back home?" Elena thought of her siblings, their education dependent on the money she sent. Her throat tightened. Robert pushed the envelope closer. "Take the money. Start over somewhere else. It's more than fair." Elena finally reached for the envelope, her fingers numb. "May I say goodbye to Andrew?" "He's already gone to prepare for his flight. My driver will take you to collect your things and then to the bus station." Robert turned to paperwork on his desk, dismissing her. "Choose any destination you want, as long as it's far from Boston." 2 hours later, Elena sat on a bus headed west, one small suitcase containing all her possessions. The envelope with Robert's check was in her pocket, feeling like it might burn through the fabric. She stared out the window as Boston's skyline disappeared behind her. One hand rested protectively on her stomach, where Andrew's child grew, unaware of the chaos surrounding its existence. As the bus drove into the setting sun, Elena made a silent promise to her baby. Somehow, she would make this work. Somehow she would create a good life for them both, even without the Harrisons' money or approval. She had no way of knowing that inside her womb, not 1 but 4 tiny hearts were already beating in perfect unison. The bus came to a stop at the Springfield station after 3 hours on the road. Elena stepped off with her small suitcase, the white envelope still in her pocket. She had never been to Springfield before, but it seemed far enough from Boston to start over. "Last stop, Springfield," the driver announced. "Everyone out." Elena walked into the station building and found a bulletin board covered with rental listings. She wrote down 3 phone numbers for cheap apartments, then used the public phone to call them. The first 2 were already taken. The third had a vacancy. "Yes, I can show it to you today," the landlord said. "The address is 217 Pine Street, 3rd floor." An hour later, Elena stood in a small apartment with peeling wallpaper and a kitchen sink that dripped. The landlord, a man named Mr. Diaz, watched as she inspected the space. "It's not fancy," Mr. Diaz said, "but it's clean and the building is safe. $400 per month plus utilities." Elena calculated quickly. She had saved almost $2,000 from her work at the Harrisons. With the money from Robert, which she still hadn't decided whether to use, she could survive until finding a job. "I'll take it," Elena said. "I can pay 3 months now." Mr. Diaz nodded. "You got a job?" "Not yet, but I will find one soon." After signing the rental agreement and paying the deposit, Elena sat alone on the bare floor of her new apartment. She placed her hand on her stomach. "We will be okay," she whispered in Spanish. "I promise." 2 weeks passed. Elena found a small table and chair at a thrift store, plus a mattress someone was giving away. She applied for jobs at every restaurant and store in walking distance. One morning, Elena felt unusually sick. She had been nauseated for days, which she expected from pregnancy, but today was worse. After throwing up 3 times, she decided to find a doctor. At the Springfield Community Health Center, Elena waited 2 hours before seeing Dr. Patel, a woman with kind eyes and a gentle voice. "First pregnancy?" Dr. Patel asked, reviewing Elena's paperwork. "Yes," Elena replied. "I think I'm about 10 weeks. Let's do an ultrasound to check. Have you had any prenatal care yet?" "No, I just moved here." Dr. Patel led Elena to the examination room and prepared the ultrasound machine. "This gel will feel cold," she warned before applying it to Elena's stomach. As Dr. Patel moved the wand across Elena's abdomen, her expression changed. She moved the wand again, then again, her eyebrows rising higher. "Is something wrong?" Elena asked, fear rising in her chest. "Doctor," Patel turned the screen toward Elena. "Do you see these 4 circles? Each one is a gestational sac." "What does that mean?" "It means you're carrying quadruplets, 4 babies." Elena stared at the screen. 4? That's not possible. "It's rare, but it happens," Dr. Patel said, "especially with certain fertility treatments." "I didn't have any treatments." "Then this is even more remarkable. Spontaneous quadruplets occur in about 1 in 700,000 pregnancies." Elena couldn't speak. 1 baby had seemed overwhelming. 4 seemed impossible. "Ms. Morales, I need to be honest with you," Dr. Patel continued. "A quadruplet pregnancy is very high risk. There are options we should discuss, including selective reduction." "What is selective reduction?" "It's a procedure to reduce the number of fetuses to give the others a better chance of survival. With quadruplets, the risks of premature birth and complications are very high." Elena placed her hand protectively over her stomach. "No, I will not do that." Dr. Patel nodded. "I understand, but you should know this pregnancy will be difficult. You'll need regular monitoring, possibly bed rest later on. Do you have family here to help you?" "No," Elena said quietly. "I have nobody." Later that day, Elena sat in St. Mary's Church, tears streaming down her face. She wasn't particularly religious, but the quiet sanctuary offered a place to think. "4 babies," she whispered. "How can I take care of 4 babies alone?" She thought about calling Andrew. Maybe if he knew, he would leave his family and help her. But Robert's threat echoed in her mind. If she contacted Andrew, she risked deportation. And what would happen to her siblings in Guatemala without her financial support? Elena pulled out the envelope Robert had given her. $10,000. It seemed like a fortune when he first offered it, but now she calculated how quickly it would disappear with 4 babies. She made her decision. She would keep all 4 babies and raise them herself. The money would remain untouched. Blood money she couldn't bring herself to use. The next morning, Elena continued her job search with new urgency. At Rosie's Diner, a small restaurant on Main Street, she found success. "Ever waitressed before?" asked Rosie, the middle-aged owner. "Yes, for 2 years in Boston," Elena lied. She had only worked as a housekeeper, but she could learn quickly. "We open at 6 in the morning. Shifts end at 2. Tips are decent. When can you start?" "Tomorrow," Elena said. In London, Andrew Harrison stared at his phone. He had called Elena's number for the 20th time, but it was still disconnected. He paced his hotel room, frustrated and confused. His computer chimed with an incoming video call. His parents' faces appeared on the screen. "Andrew, darling, how is London?" Margaret asked, her voice artificially cheerful. "Fine," Andrew said shortly. "Have you heard anything from Elena?" Robert and Margaret exchanged glances. "Son, we told you," Robert said. "She quit without notice. People like that are unreliable." "It doesn't make sense," Andrew insisted. "She wouldn't just leave without saying goodbye." Margaret sighed. "I hate to tell you this, but we found out she took some items from the house. A silver serving spoon and one of my brooches are missing." Andrew shook his head. "That's not possible. Elena wouldn't steal." "We didn't want to upset you before your trip," Robert continued smoothly, "but it's better you know the truth. She used us, took what she wanted, and left." Andrew felt sick. He couldn't believe it. The Elena he knew was honest and hard-working. "I need to find her," he said. "Andrew, focus on your work," Robert said firmly. "That's why you're in Europe. Oh, by the way, Williams asked about you. His daughter Caroline is in Paris this month. You should give her a call." After ending the call, Andrew sat on the edge of his bed, head in his hands. Something felt wrong about the whole situation, but he had no way to reach Elena. As weeks passed, Elena's pregnancy progressed. Her uniform at Rosie's Diner grew tighter, and she began wearing loose sweaters to hide her condition. At 16 weeks, Dr. Patel confirmed Elena was carrying 4 identical girls. "Identical quadruplets are extremely rare," she explained. "They formed when one fertilized egg split multiple times." Elena's small apartment slowly acquired baby items. A customer at the diner gave her a crib her grandchildren had outgrown, and she found baby clothes at thrift stores. But the reality of caring for 4 newborns alone kept her awake at night. One evening, as Elena struggled up the 3 flights of stairs to her apartment, a voice called out, "Would you like some help with those groceries?" An elderly woman stood at the door across from Elena's, her white hair neatly pinned back. "Thank you," Elena said, handing over the lighter bag. "I'm Helen Jenkins. Most people call me Mrs. Jenkins. I've seen you coming and going. You're new to the building." "Elena Morales. Yes, I moved here 2 months ago." Mrs. Jenkins followed Elena into her apartment, placing the groceries on the counter. Her eyes fell on the crib in the corner, then noticed Elena's pregnancy. "When are you due, dear?" "January," Elena said, "but the doctor says they will come early." "They?" Elena hesitated, then decided to be honest. "I'm having quadruplets." Mrs. Jenkins' eyes widened. "Quadruplets? 4 babies? Goodness! And you're here alone?" Elena nodded. "Where's the father?" "He doesn't know. It's complicated." Mrs. Jenkins studied Elena's face. "Everything in life is complicated, dear. But 4 babies? That's beyond complicated." She walked to the door, then turned back. "I was a teacher for 40 years before I retired. I know a thing or two about children. If you need help, my door is always open." As Mrs. Jenkins left, Elena felt a weight lift from her shoulders. Perhaps she wasn't completely alone after all. That night, as Elena lay in bed, one of the babies kicked for the first time. Then another. Soon it felt like a tiny boxing match was happening inside her. She placed her hand on her growing belly. "Hello, little ones," she whispered. "We have a lot of challenges ahead, but we'll face them together." Outside her window, the first snow of winter began to fall over Springfield, covering the city in white as Elena drifted to sleep, unaware that across the ocean Andrew had just accepted an offer to extend his European assignment for another 3 months. The winter snow continued to fall over Springfield through January. Elena's body changed rapidly as her pregnancy progressed. By the 32nd week, she looked like she might give birth any day. Dr. Patel had warned her that quadruplet pregnancies rarely went full term. "Your blood pressure is too high," Dr. Patel said during Elena's weekly checkup, "and there are proteins in your urine. These are signs of preeclampsia." "What does that mean?" Elena asked, one hand resting on her enormous belly. "It means we need to monitor you very closely. Preeclampsia can be dangerous for both you and the babies." 2 days later, Elena woke at 3 in the morning with a splitting headache. Her vision blurred with tiny spots of light. She knew something was wrong. She called Mrs. Jenkins, who came immediately to her apartment. "We need to get you to the hospital," Mrs. Jenkins said, already dialing for a taxi. At Springfield Medical Center, the doctors moved quickly. Elena's blood pressure had risen to dangerous levels. Dr. Patel examined her and made an immediate decision. "We need to deliver the babies now," she said. "Your condition is deteriorating and the babies are showing signs of distress." "But it's too early," Elena protested. 32 weeks is early, yes, but we have no choice. We're prepping you for an emergency C-section." Everything happened so fast after that. Elena was wheeled into the operating room, where a team of medical professionals worked with practiced efficiency. Mrs. Jenkins was allowed to stay by her head, holding her hand through the procedure. "Everything will be all right," Mrs. Jenkins whispered. Elena felt tugging but no pain as Dr. Patel worked. Then came a tiny cry. "Baby A is out," a nurse announced. "Time of birth, 4:17 a.m." One by one, the 4 tiny babies were delivered, each whisked away immediately to waiting incubators. 4 identical girls, Dr. Patel said as she finished the surgery. All breathing on their own, which is excellent news. When Elena woke in the recovery room, Mrs. Jenkins was sitting beside her. "The babies?" Elena asked immediately. "They're in the NICU, that's the neonatal intensive care unit. They're very small but fighting hard." 6 hours later, when Elena had regained enough strength, a nurse helped her into a wheelchair. Mrs. Jenkins pushed her to the NICU, where 4 tiny humans lay in separate incubators, connected to monitors and tubes. "They're so small," Elena whispered. Dr. Patel approached. "They range from 3 pounds 2 ounces to 3 pounds 7 ounces. Small, but good weights for quadruplets at 32 weeks. She pointed to each baby. "Have you thought of names?" "Yes," Elena said. "Sophia, Isabella, Olivia, and Emma." Dr. Patel nodded. "Let me show you how to touch them. They're too fragile to hold yet, but your touch is important for their development." Elena reached through the small opening in Sophia's incubator, gently placing her finger against her daughter's tiny hand. Sophia reflexively grasped it, and tears spilled down Elena's cheeks. "Hello, Sophia," she whispered. She did the same with each baby. When she reached Isabella, Dr. Patel's expression turned serious. "Isabella's lungs aren't as developed as her sister's. We're giving her extra oxygen and medication to help." That night, as Elena rested in her hospital room, Mrs. Jenkins brought paperwork for her to sign. "The hospital needs to know who can make decisions for the babies if you can't," Mrs. Jenkins explained. "I've listed myself as your emergency contact if that's okay." Elena signed the forms. "Thank you for everything, Mrs. Jenkins. Call me Helen. I think we're past formalities now." The next morning, a man in a neat button-down shirt knocked on Elena's door. "Miss Morales? I'm Jack Thompson from Social Services. I'd like to talk about resources available to you and your daughters." Jack sat beside Elena's bed, explaining various programs. "You'll qualify for emergency Medicaid for the baby's medical care. There's also WIC for formula and food, and possibly TANF for additional financial support." "I don't like asking for help," Elena admitted. "You're not asking." "These programs exist because our society recognizes that sometimes people need support," Jack said, "especially in situations like yours. Raising one baby alone is difficult. 4 is extraordinary." Elena thought about Robert's check, still uncashed and hidden in her apartment. "I have some money saved," she said. "Keep it. You'll need it. Hospital bills for premature quadruplets will be substantial, even with Medicaid. And once they come home, you'll need equipment, clothing, formula, times 4. Jack helped Elena fill out applications, promising to expedite them through the system. "I'll check on you again tomorrow," he said as he left. "In the meantime, focus on getting stronger. Those little girls need you." 2 days after the birth, Isabella's condition worsened. Her oxygen levels dropped, and doctors diagnosed her with respiratory distress syndrome. "We need to intubate her," Dr. Patel explained. "Put a tube in her airway to help her breathe." "Will she be okay?" Elena asked, fear gripping her heart. Many premature babies develop this condition. The treatment is effective, but she'll need to stay hospitalized longer than her sisters. For the next 3 weeks, Elena split her time between her hospital room and the NICU. She learned to change tiny diapers, to read the monitors, and to understand what each beep and alarm meant. She pumped breast milk every 3 hours, day and night, determined to give her daughters the best start possible despite their difficult beginning. Mrs. Jenkins visited daily, bringing clothes for Elena and learning alongside her how to care for the babies. "I never had children of my own," Mrs. Jenkins confessed. "Teaching was my life, but now, these little ones feel almost like my grandchildren." 4 weeks after their birth, Sophia, Olivia, and Emma were strong enough to leave the hospital. Isabella remained, still needing supplemental oxygen, though she no longer required a breathing tube. The day Elena brought the first 3 babies home, Mrs. Jenkins had a surprise waiting. "The neighbors helped," she explained as Elena entered her apartment. The small living room had been transformed. 3 second-hand cribs lined one wall. A changing table stood in the corner with stacks of diapers. A rocking chair sat by the window. "People from my church donated most of it," Mrs. Jenkins said, "and I found the cribs at a thrift store." Jack Thompson brought the changing table. Elena burst into tears. "I don't know how to thank everyone." "You don't need to. Just take good care of these little ones." That first night alone with 3 newborns was overwhelming. When one baby slept, another woke hungry. When Elena finally fed all 3, the first began crying again. Mrs. Jenkins came over at midnight, finding Elena in tears. "Go sleep for 3 hours, the older woman ordered. "I'll watch them. Then we'll switch." They developed a system. Mrs. Jenkins would help during the night, allowing Elena to get some sleep. During the day, Elena cared for the babies while making daily trips to the hospital to visit Isabella. 2 weeks later, Isabella finally came home. Elena had 4 babies under 2 months old, all needing constant care. The reality of her situation hit her fully that first night with all 4. "I can't do this," she whispered as all 4 cried simultaneously. Mrs. Jenkins appeared at her door in a bathrobe. "Yes, you can. And you will. We'll figure it out together." In Boston, Andrew Harrison returned from his extended European assignment. He entered the Harrison mansion, still hoping for news about Elena despite 9 months of silence. "Welcome home, son," Robert said, embracing him. "Have you heard anything from Elena?" Andrew asked immediately. Margaret stepped forward. "Andrew, dear, you need to let her go. Some people aren't meant to stay in our lives." "She disappeared without a word," Andrew said. "That's not like her." "People can surprise you," Robert said. "Come see the improvements we've made to your office at Harrison Properties. And Caroline Williams has been asking about you. Her father and I just finalized a major development deal." As his parents led him through the house, Andrew felt empty despite being home. Something was missing, and he couldn't shake the feeling that Elena wouldn't have left without saying goodbye. In Springfield, Elena gently rocked Isabella, who still sometimes struggled to breathe. Through the window, she could see the first signs of spring, tiny buds appearing on the trees outside. She looked at her 4 daughters, now 2 months old, their tiny faces so similar yet each already showing hints of individual personality. "Your father would be so proud of you," she whispered. "Someday, maybe you'll meet him. But for now, we have each other. And that's enough." Spring turned to summer, then fall, then winter, and then spring again. Days blurred together for Elena in a constant cycle of feeding, changing, and soothing 4 identical baby girls. The first year passed in sleepless exhaustion. By the time the quadruplets celebrated their 2nd birthday, Elena had developed systems to manage their care, though every day remained a challenge. "Sophia, please sit still while Mommy puts on your shoes," Elena said, chasing after the most active of her daughters. At 2 years old, the quadruplets looked completely identical. Same brown eyes, same dark curls, same round cheeks. Elena dressed them in different colored shirts, red for Sophia, green for Isabella, blue for Olivia, and purple for Emma, and used matching colored hair clips to help others tell them apart. Mrs. Jenkins sat in the rocking chair, helping Olivia with her shoes. "I don't know how you do this every day," she said, watching Elena efficiently move from one task to the next. "I don't have a choice," Elena replied, finally capturing Sophia. "And I have you to help." "I'm 74 years old, dear. I move a lot slower than these little ones." Elena smiled gratefully at her neighbor. "I couldn't do this without you, Mrs. Jenkins." The morning routine was always the same. Elena woke at 5 o'clock to prepare for her shift at Rosie's Diner. She got the girls dressed and fed before Mrs. Jenkins arrived at 6:15 to watch them. Elena would work until 2 o'clock, then return home to relieve Mrs. Jenkins. Today, Elena kissed each girl goodbye before heading to work. "Be good for Mrs. Jenkins," she told them. "Mommy work," said Emma, the quietest of the 4. "Yes, Mommy has to work. I'll be back this afternoon." At Rosie's Diner, Elena tied on her apron and immediately began serving customers. Over the past 2 years, she had become one of the most popular waitresses. Regular customers knew her story and often left generous tips. "How are your little ones?" asked Mr. Peterson, an elderly man who came for breakfast every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. "Growing too fast," Elena replied, pouring his coffee. "Isabella had another asthma attack last night. The medication helps, but it's expensive." "My grandson had asthma as a kid, grew out of it eventually," Mr. Peterson said, placing an extra $5 beside his check for the little one's medicine. At 2 o'clock, Elena rushed home to find Mrs. Jenkins reading to the girls. After the elderly woman left, Elena began her second job, data entry work she could do from home while watching the children. She sat at her small desk with her laptop, keeping one eye on the screen and one on the quadruplets playing on the floor nearby. Isabella coughed, a deep wheezing sound that immediately caught Elena's attention. She reached for the inhaler kept on a high shelf. "Come here, Isabella," she called. The little girl in the green shirt toddled over, already familiar with the routine. Elena administered the medicine, holding her daughter close until her breathing eased. "Good girl," she whispered. "My chest hurts," Isabella said in her small voice. "I know, baby. The medicine will help." Later that evening, after putting the girls to bed, Elena calculated her budget for the month. Isabella's medication cost $200. The rent was $500. Food, diapers, and utilities took most of what remained from her waitressing job and data entry work. There was nothing left to save. "Maybe I need to find a third job," she whispered to herself. In Boston, Andrew Harrison adjusted his tie before entering the conference room at Harrison Properties. As the newly promoted vice president of development, he led the morning meeting with confidence his father had instilled in him. "The Portland Street project is ahead of schedule," he told the team. "We're looking at completion by next August instead of October." After the meeting, Robert Harrison called his son into his office. Andrew sat across from his father, noting how much more gray had appeared in Robert's hair over the past 2 years. "Excellent presentation this morning," Robert said. "The board was impressed." "Thank you, Father." "Your mother and I had dinner with William and Patricia Williams last night," Robert continued. "Caroline asked about you. She's finished her medical residency and joining her father's practice." Andrew nodded. He and Caroline had been dating for 8 months, a relationship both families enthusiastically supported. Caroline was beautiful, intelligent, and from the right social circle. On paper, they were perfect together. "I was thinking of taking her to the symphony this weekend," Andrew said. "Good," Robert nodded approvingly. "The Williams connection is valuable for Harrison Properties. William mentioned expanding their medical buildings. We could be well positioned for that contract." Later, in his own office, Andrew stared out the window at Boston's skyline. His phone buzzed with a text from Caroline. "Dinner tonight? The new French restaurant on Newberry Street?" Andrew typed back, "Pick you up at 7. He put down his phone and opened his desk drawer, removing a small photo. Elena smiled back at him, a picture taken secretly during their time together. 2 years had passed since she disappeared from his life. He still thought about her daily, wondering where she was and why she left without saying goodbye. His assistant knocked on the door and Andrew quickly returned the photo to the drawer. "Mr. Harrison, your 3 o'clock appointment is here." Back in Springfield, Elena received bad news at Rosie's diner. "We're closing for renovations," Rosie told her. 6 to 8 weeks, starting next Monday. "I can't be without work for that long," Elena said, panic rising in her voice. "I'm sorry, honey. I'll call you the minute we reopen." That evening, Elena scanned job listings online after the girls were asleep. She found an evening cleaning position at an office building downtown. The hours were from 7 to midnight, 5 nights a week. But who will watch the girls? She wondered aloud. The next morning, she talked to Mrs. Jenkins. "I can't watch them at night," the elderly woman said regretfully. "My eyes aren't good enough in the evening." "I understand," Elena said. "Maybe I can bring them with me." That night, Elena called the cleaning company and explained her situation. The manager was hesitant but agreed to a trial period. "As long as they don't disturb anything and you get the work done," he said. The following Monday, Elena pulled a wagon with 4 sleepy toddlers to the office building. She set up a small area in each room she cleaned, blankets on the floor, quiet toys, and small snacks. The girls, tired from their active day, usually fell asleep while she worked. This became the new routine. Elena would put the girls in the wagon at 6:30 in the evening and walk to the office building. They would return home around 12:30 at night, with Elena carrying each sleeping child up the 3 flights of stairs to their apartment. On weekends, Elena started babysitting for a family with a single child, bringing her quadruplets along. The extra money helped cover Isabella's increasing medical costs, but Elena was exhausted from working 7 days a week. Andrew and Caroline attended the Boston Symphony's spring gala. Caroline wore an elegant blue gown that matched her eyes, and Andrew wore a tuxedo. They moved easily through the crowd, greeting Boston's elite. "Dr. Mitchell asked about your father's health," Caroline mentioned as they found their seats. "He's fine," Andrew replied, scanning the crowd out of habit. He always looked for Elena, even after 2 years. During intermission, Caroline discussed redecorating her new office at the medical practice. Andrew nodded, only half listening. "You seem distracted tonight," Caroline observed. "Sorry, just thinking about work." "Andrew, you called me Elena yesterday," Caroline said suddenly, "when we were leaving the restaurant. Andrew froze. Did I? Yes. Who is Elena? Someone I used to know. It meant nothing. Caroline didn't look convinced but dropped the subject. Later that week, Robert invited Andrew to his study. I have something for you, Robert said, opening a small box to reveal a diamond ring. Your grandmother's. I thought you might want it for Caroline. Andrew stared at the ring. I haven't decided to propose yet. It's been 8 months, son. The Williams family is expecting it. Their pharmaceutical holdings would align perfectly with our real estate developments. Is that why you want me to marry her? Business alignment? Robert closed the box. Love comes in many forms. Your mother and I started with compatibility and mutual goals. The deeper feelings grew later. On a rainy April morning, Elena celebrated the quadruplet's second birthday with a small party at their apartment. Mrs. Jenkins brought a homemade cake. Jack Thompson, the social worker who had helped Elena navigate assistance programs, brought wrapped presents. Make a wish, Elena told the girls as they stared in wonder at the 2 candles. They all tried to blow together, sending spittle flying over the frosting. Everyone laughed. The happiness was short-lived. That afternoon, Isabella began wheezing severely. Her lips turned slightly blue as she struggled to breathe. Call an ambulance! Elena shouted to Jack as she grabbed Isabella's inhaler. The emergency room visit resulted in Isabella being admitted overnight for observation. The doctor prescribed a stronger medication that cost even more than the previous one. Have you considered contacting the children's father? Jack asked gently as they sat beside Isabella's hospital bed. For financial support, if nothing else. Elena shook her head. The Harrisons would try to take them from me, or they would control our lives with their money. 4 children is a tremendous responsibility to bear alone, Jack said. They're my responsibility, Elena insisted. I will find a way. A week later, Elena found an official-looking letter in her mailbox. She read it with growing horror. What's wrong? Mrs. Jenkins asked, noticing Elena's expression in the hallway. The building has been sold. They're converting to condominiums, Elena said shakily. We have 60 days to move out. She looked down at her daughters playing at her feet, unaware their world was about to change again. The letter trembled in her hand as she calculated rental prices in Springfield, all far beyond what she could afford. The eviction notice felt heavy in Elena's hands as she searched apartment listings in Springfield. Every available rental cost far more than she could afford on her reduced income. Mommy, look! Emma pointed to a picture of a puppy in a magazine. Very cute, Elena said absently, checking her calendar. Tomorrow she had to take Isabella to Springfield Medical Center for her specialist appointment. The timing couldn't be worse. The next morning, Elena dressed all 4 girls in matching blue dresses with their colored hair clips. Red for Sophia, green for Isabella, blue for Olivia, and purple for Emma. She loaded them into their wagon and walked 15 blocks to the medical center, arriving slightly breathless. At the reception desk, a woman with tired eyes handed Elena a clipboard. Insurance information has changed. Need to update everything. Elena stared at the paperwork. Her emergency Medicaid coverage for the girls was complicated, with different approval codes for Isabella's asthma treatment. I don't understand this section, Elena told the receptionist, pointing to a box about secondary coverage. Just fill out what you can. The financial counselor will help you. Elena settled the quadruplets in the waiting area with small coloring books. Stay right here where Mommy can see you, she instructed. A financial counselor named Ms. Brown called Elena to her office, frowning at the paperwork. The treatment Dr. Matthews recommended isn't fully covered by your plan, Ms. Brown explained. There will be a $300 copay. $300? $3. Elena's stomach tightened. I don't have that much. You could apply for the hospital's financial assistance program or discuss a payment plan with billing. Before Elena could respond, a nurse appeared at the door. Isabella Morales? Dr. Williams can see her now. Dr. Williams? Elena asked, confused. We usually see Dr. Matthews. Dr. Matthews is on vacation. Dr. Williams is covering his patients. Back in the waiting room, Elena gathered her daughters and followed the nurse to an examination room. A few minutes later, Dr. Williams entered, a tall man with silver hair and kind eyes. "Hello, Isabella," he said, then looked at the other three identical faces. "And hello to you three as well. I'm Dr. Williams." Dr. Williams examined Isabella thoroughly, listening to her lungs and checking her throat. "Her airways are still inflamed," he said to Elena. "I'd recommend a different medication. It's more effective for children with her particular symptoms." "Is it covered by insurance?" Dr. Williams hesitated. "Partially. I'll have my nurse check the details." After the examination, Elena and the quadruplets returned to the waiting room while Dr. Williams wrote the prescription. The girls colored quietly, occasionally whispering to each other. The elevator doors opened, and a young woman with blonde hair stepped out, carrying a small gift bag. She spotted Dr. Williams and waved. "Dad, I brought your birthday lunch," she called. Elena glanced up, noting the woman's expensive clothes and confident manner. The woman noticed the quadruplets and smiled. "Oh my goodness, identical quads! How adorable," she said, approaching Elena. "Thank you," Elena replied politely. "I'm Caroline Williams. My father is working here today." She knelt to the girls' level. "Hello there. You all look exactly alike." Sophia, always the boldest, spoke up. "I'm Sophia. This is Isabella, Olivia, and Emma." "How do you tell them apart?" Caroline asked Elena. Elena pointed to their hair clips. "Different colors. It helps." Dr. Williams joined them, smiling at his daughter. "Caroline, nice surprise." "Happy birthday, Dad," Caroline said, handing him the gift bag. "I thought we could have lunch together." "Perfect timing. Let me take a few photos for your mother first. She wanted to see me in my new lab coat." Caroline held up her phone and took several pictures of her father standing near the reception desk. In the background, the quadruplets continued coloring, partially visible in the frame. "Isabella's prescription will be ready at the pharmacy downstairs," Dr. Williams told Elena. "The nurse is working on the insurance details." "Thank you, doctor." As Elena gathered her daughters to leave, Caroline waved goodbye. "They're beautiful children. You must have your hands full." Elena smiled politely. "Yes, every day is busy." In Boston, Andrew sat through a tedious budget meeting at Harrison Properties. To pass time, he discreetly checked his phone under the table. Caroline had posted new photos on social media. He scrolled through pictures of her having lunch with her father at Springfield Medical Center. Something in the background of one photo caught his eye. He zoomed in on 4 small figures sitting in the waiting room, 4 identical little girls with dark curls. Andrew's heart raced. The children looked around 3 years old, exactly what he would expect if Elena had been pregnant when she disappeared. And there were 4 of them, identical quadruplets. He stared at the photo, calculating dates in his head. The timing matched perfectly. "Andrew?" His father's voice broke through his thoughts. "Your thoughts on the West Side proposal?" I think we should proceed cautiously," Andrew stammered, barely aware of what he was saying. After the meeting, Andrew locked himself in his office and enlarged the photo again. The children's faces showed clear Harrison features, his own chin, his father's eyes. And they were at Springfield Medical Center where Dr. Williams worked. Springfield was only about 90 minutes from Boston. Andrew opened his computer and searched property records for Elena Morales in Springfield. Nothing appeared. He tried rental applications, utility records, anything that might show her location. Finally, he found a business license for a home babysitting service registered to Elena Morales on Pine Street. That evening, Andrew canceled his dinner plans with Caroline, claiming work obligations. Instead, he drove to Springfield, following his GPS to Pine Street. He parked across from the address and waited, uncertain what he would say if he actually saw Elena. At 7:15, the building door opened. Andrew's breath caught as Elena emerged, pulling a wagon containing 4 identical little girls. They were dressed for bed, wearing pajamas with different colored trim. "Mommy, I'm hungry," one said loudly. "We'll have a snack when we get to Mrs. Peterson's house," Elena replied, her voice exactly as Andrew remembered. Andrew watched them travel down the sidewalk, too stunned to move. Elena looked tired, thinner than he remembered, but she moved with the same grace. And the children, his children, were beautiful. Instead of approaching her, Andrew returned to Boston, his mind racing. He needed more information before confronting Elena. The next morning, Andrew contacted a private investigator recommended by Harrison Properties' security team. "I need information about this woman and her children," Andrew explained, providing Elena's address. Discreetly. 3 days later, the investigator delivered a detailed report. Elena Morales worked multiple jobs: weekend babysitting, evening office cleaning, and data entry. The quadruplets were born at Springfield Medical Center 3 years ago. Isabella had medical issues requiring specialist care. They lived in a small apartment with their mother. No father present, no child support on record. Andrew stared at photos of his daughters playing in a park with Elena. His hands shook with anger. Not at Elena, but at his parents. They must have known. They must have sent Elena away when they discovered her pregnancy. He drove directly to the Harrison mansion, the investigator's report tucked under his arm. The housekeeper showed him to his father's study, where both his parents were having evening drinks. "Andrew? We weren't expecting you," Margaret said. "No, I suppose you weren't," Andrew replied coldly. He threw the report on his father's desk. Photos of Elena and the quadruplets spilled across the polished surface. Robert and Margaret froze, exchanging alarmed glances. "Identical quadruplets," Andrew said. "My daughters. Born to Elena Morales 3 years ago in Springfield, Massachusetts. The same Elena you told me had stolen from you and disappeared without saying goodbye." "Andrew, we can explain," Margaret began. "Explain what?" "How you paid her to leave. How you sent me to Europe so you could get rid of her. How you've kept me from my children for 3 years." Robert stood, his face hardening. "We did what was necessary to protect you and the Harrison name." "Protect me? From what? From the woman I loved? From my own children?" "You were too young to throw away your future on a maid," Robert insisted. "She took our money and left. That was her choice." "How much did you pay her?" $10,000, Robert said. "More than generous." Andrew laughed bitterly. $10,000 to raise 4 children alone? Do you know she works 3 jobs just to keep a roof over their heads? That one of my daughters has asthma requiring expensive medication? "Andrew, please understand," Margaret pleaded. "We thought it was best." "Best for who?" Andrew demanded. "Not for Elena. Not for my daughters. And certainly not for me." He grabbed his car keys. "Where are you going?" Robert asked sharply. "Back to Springfield. I have 4 little girls I need to meet." "Don't be hasty," Robert warned. "We need to handle this properly. Consider the legal implications, the publicity." "I don't care about publicity or the Harrison name," Andrew snapped. "I care about the family you stole from me." As Andrew reached the door, his father called after him. "Andrew, don't throw away everything we've built for you on some emotional impulse." Andrew turned back, his eyes cold. "You know what's ironic, Father? Elena never cashed your check. The investigator confirmed it. She chose to struggle alone rather than take your blood money. What does that tell you about her character versus yours?" With that, he left, his mind already in Springfield with the family he never knew he had. The next morning, Andrew filled his car with toys and books bought during an early shopping trip. He stopped at a toy store when it opened at 8 o'clock, buying 4 identical teddy bears in different colors, picture books, art supplies, and small dolls. The sales clerk raised eyebrows at the quantity, but Andrew barely noticed her reaction. During the drive to Springfield, Andrew rehearsed what he would say to Elena. Words formed and dissolved in his mind as he navigated the highway. By the time he parked near her apartment building, His prepared speech had vanished completely. He waited in his car, watching the building entrance. At 9:30, Elena emerged with the quadruplets. They were dressed in matching yellow dresses with their signature colored hair clips. Elena loaded them into a wagon and began walking down the sidewalk. Andrew followed at a distance, observing how Elena interacted with their daughters. When Sophia tried to climb out of the wagon, Elena firmly but gently guided her back to her seat. When Emma pointed at a bird, Elena stopped to let all 4 girls watch it. She moved with practiced efficiency, answering questions and keeping the group moving forward. They arrived at a modest house where Elena unloaded the girls. Andrew realized this must be her weekend babysitting job. He watched as Elena knocked on the door and was greeted by a woman with a toddler. Andrew parked his car and sat for 20 minutes, gathering courage. Finally, he approached the house and knocked on the door. Elena answered, her eyes widening with shock when she saw him. "Andrew?" she whispered, her face draining of color. "Hello, Elena," he said quietly. They stared at each other for a long moment until the woman who owned the house appeared behind Elena. "Is everything okay?" she asked. Elena cleared her throat. "Mrs. Peterson, this is an old friend. Would you mind if I speak with him outside for a few minutes?" "Of course not. Take your time." Elena stepped onto the porch, closing the door behind her. She crossed her arms defensively. "How did you find me?" she asked. "I saw a photo Caroline Williams took at Springfield Medical Center. The girls were in the background." Elena's eyes filled with tears. "So now you know." "Why didn't you tell me?" Andrew asked, his voice breaking. "They're my daughters, Elena. Your father made it very clear what would happen if I contacted you. He threatened to have me deported." "I would never have let that happen." Elena laughed bitterly. "You were in Europe. I had no way to reach you. Your father gave me $10,000 to disappear. I know about the check. My investigator said you never cashed it. I didn't want his money." Through the window, Andrew could see the quadruplets playing inside. "I want to meet them," he said. Elena hesitated. "Andrew, they don't know about you. I can't just introduce you as their father, it would confuse them. Please, Elena, I've missed 3 years of their lives already." The door opened and Sophia peeked out. "Mommy, Emma took my crayon." Elena knelt to her level. "Go tell Emma that she needs to share, sweetheart." Sophia looked curiously at Andrew before disappearing back inside. "She looks just like my mother did in old photos," Andrew said softly. "They all do. They have your chin, though." Andrew's eyes filled with tears. "Please let me meet them, just as a friend of yours for now." Elena considered this, then nodded slowly. "I finish work here at 5 o'clock. Meet me at Riverside Park at 5:30. It has a playground where the girls can play while we talk." Back in Boston, Robert paced his study while Margaret sat rigidly in an armchair. "We should call our lawyers," Robert said. "If Andrew tries to establish paternity—" "Robert, stop!" Margaret interrupted. "We've interfered enough. Those children are our grandchildren. We did what was necessary to protect our son's future." Margaret looked out the window. "Did we? Or did we just protect the Harrison name and our own reputation?" "They're the same thing?" "Are they?" Margaret asked quietly. "Because right now, our son hates us. Is that what you wanted for the Harrison legacy?" Robert didn't answer. He picked up the phone and called his attorney anyway. At 5:30, Andrew waited at Riverside Park. He had changed from his business suit into casual clothes, jeans, and a blue button-down shirt. The toys and books remained in his car. Elena had asked him not to bring gifts yet. He spotted Elena approaching with the quadruplets. The girls ran ahead to the playground, identical in everything except the colors in their hair. "Remember to stay where I can see you," Elena called after them. She sat beside Andrew on a bench facing the playground. For a moment, neither spoke. "They're amazing," Andrew said finally. I can't believe there are 4 of them. The doctor said spontaneous identical quadruplets happen in about 1 in 700,000 pregnancies. When did you find out? At my first doctor's appointment after leaving Boston. Dr. Patel suggested selective reduction because of the risks, but I couldn't do it. Andrew watched Sophia help Emma climb a ladder. Which one is which? I'm trying to remember the colors. Sophia has the red clip. She's the leader, always first to try new things. Isabella has green. She's the one with asthma, more cautious but very sweet. Olivia has blue. She loves music and dancing. Emma has purple. She's the quietest, always observing. Isabella is sick? Andrew asked, focusing on what concerned him most. Elena nodded. She has asthma. It started when they were about 6 months old. The medication is expensive, even with assistance programs. I want to help with that. With everything. Elena looked away. I've managed on my own for 3 years. You shouldn't have had to. If I had known. Your father made sure you didn't know, Elena said sharply. Then her voice softened. I'm sorry. This isn't your fault. Andrew reached for her hand, but she pulled away. Elena, I never stopped thinking about you. When you disappeared, I searched for you. But my parents said, I know what they said, that I stole things, that I was ungrateful. I didn't really believe them, but I had no way to find you. They were interrupted by Isabella running to Elena, breathing heavily. Mommy, chest hurts, she wheezed. Elena immediately reached into her bag and pulled out an inhaler. With practiced movements, she helped Isabella use it, counting softly as the child inhaled the medication. Good girl, Elena murmured. Deep breaths. That's it. Andrew watched, feeling helpless and impressed at how competently Elena handled the situation. After a few minutes, Isabella's breathing eased. Better now? Elena asked. Isabella nodded. Can I go play more? Rest a little first. Sit here with me and Mommy's friend. Isabella climbed onto the bench between them, looking curiously at Andrew. Are you Mommy's boyfriend? She asked. Andrew glanced at Elena, unsure how to respond. No, Isabella, Elena answered. Mr. Andrew is an old friend who came to visit. You have the same name as my doll, Isabella told him. Andrew Bear. That's a nice coincidence, Andrew said, his voice thick with emotion. After Isabella returned to play, Andrew and Elena continued their conversation. I want to be part of their lives, he said. I've missed so much already. It's not that simple, Elena replied. They're settled in their routine. You can't just appear suddenly as their father. I understand that. We can go slowly. I could visit regularly. Build a relationship with them first. Elena considered this. I don't want them to be confused or disappointed. What do you mean? If you start visiting and then stop. If you make promises you don't keep. They've never had a father figure. I don't want them to get attached and then be hurt. I won't disappear, Andrew promised. These are my daughters, Elena. I want to know them. Elena watched the girls play for a long moment before responding. Twice a week. You can visit twice a week for now as my friend. We'll see how it goes before telling them more. Thank you, Andrew said. And what about financial support? I want to help with Isabella's medical bills, with your housing situation. I don't want your family's money, Elena interrupted. Not my family's money. My money. I work, Elena. I earn my own living. Elena sighed. We can discuss that later. For now, let's focus on establishing your relationship with the girls. As they watched the quadruplets play, Andrew's phone rang. His father's name appeared on the screen. He silenced it without answering. Your father? Elena guessed. Yes. He probably wants to tell me how to handle this situation. And how do you want to handle it? Andrew looked directly at Elena. I want to be a father to my daughters. I want to make up for the time I've missed, and I want to make things right with you if that's even possible. Before Elena could respond, Sophia ran up to them. Mommy, who is this man? She asked boldly. Elena glanced at Andrew, then back at her daughter. "This is Mr. Andrew. He's going to be visiting us sometimes." Sophia studied Andrew's face carefully. "You look like the man in Mommy's picture." "What picture?" Andrew asked. "The one she keeps in her special box. The one she looks at when she's sad." Elena blushed. "Sophia, that's enough. Go play with your sisters." As Sophia ran back to the playground, Andrew turned to Elena with a question in his eyes. "You kept a picture of me?" "One picture," Elena admitted. "So they would know what their father looked like someday." Over the next 2 weeks, Andrew established a routine of visiting Elena and the quadruplets. True to his word, he came twice a week at first, Tuesdays and Saturdays, always bringing small, thoughtful gifts that Elena reluctantly accepted. "Just books and crayons," he assured her when she protested. "Every child needs books." Andrew had checked into the Springfield Hotel, planning to stay indefinitely. On his third morning there, he called Harrison Properties. "I need to take a leave of absence," he told his assistant. "Personal reasons. I'm not sure when I'll return." His father called back immediately. "What do you mean, leave of absence?" Robert demanded. "We have the Portland Street project launching next month. Jason can handle it," Andrew replied calmly. "I have more important matters to attend to. Those children have survived 3 years without you. They can wait until we sort this out properly." Andrew's voice hardened. "They've survived because Elena worked 3 jobs to support them. I've missed enough of their lives already." After hanging up, Andrew drove to Elena's apartment for his scheduled visit. The girls were beginning to recognize him now. Sophia and Olivia ran to the door when he arrived, while Emma watched shyly from behind Elena. Isabella still kept her distance. "I brought new books today," Andrew told them, sitting cross-legged on the floor. "Would you like me to read one?" Sophia immediately plopped into his lap, while Olivia leaned against his shoulder. Emma edged closer. Isabella watched from across the room. As Andrew read, Elena busied herself in the kitchen, stealing glances at them. The scene looked so natural, Andrew with their daughters, that it made her chest tighten. "You're good with them," she said later after the girls were napping. "They make it easy," Andrew replied. "They're amazing, Elena." "How did you do this alone all this time?" "I wasn't completely alone. Mrs. Jenkins helped a lot. I'd like to meet her properly. She sounds remarkable." "She is. Without her, I don't know what I would have done." Andrew noticed a stack of apartment listings on the table. "How's the housing search going?" Elena sighed. "Not well. Everything in my price range is worse than this place, and this building is being converted to condominiums. We have to be out in 6 weeks." "Let me help," Andrew offered. "I work in real estate. I know people." "Andrew, please, Elena, let me do this one thing." After some discussion, Elena agreed to let Andrew help find a new apartment. The next day, he arranged viewings of several places within her budget. All were small, in poor condition, or in unsafe neighborhoods. "This isn't acceptable," he muttered after the third disappointing apartment. "This is what I can afford," Elena reminded him. Andrew drove her to one final property, a small house with a fenced yard in a quiet neighborhood. "This is far outside my budget," Elena protested when they pulled up. "Just look at it," Andrew insisted. The house was modest but well-maintained with 3 bedrooms and a small backyard. Elena tried to hide her reaction, but Andrew saw her eyes light up when she looked at the yard. "The girls could play outside," she said softly. "Yes, they could." "Andrew, I can't afford this. I want to pay for it." Elena shook her head. "No, I won't be dependent on you or your family. What if I buy it as an investment property and rent it to you at your current rate? That's not a real investment." "It is to me," Andrew said. "Investing in my daughter's safety and happiness seems like the best use of my money." They argued about it all the way back to Elena's apartment, where they found Mrs. Jenkins waiting outside their door. "There you two are," the elderly woman said. "I came to watch the girls so Elena could apartment hunt." Mrs. Jenkins, this is Andrew. Elena introduced them. He's been helping me look at places. Mrs. Jenkins studied Andrew with shrewd eyes. So you're the young man who finally showed up? About time. Mrs. Jenkins, Elena warned. It's all right, Andrew said. She's right. Inside, while Elena checked on the napping quadruplets, Mrs. Jenkins showed Andrew photo albums she'd made. I documented everything, she explained. Their first smile, first tooth, first steps. Elena worked so hard she missed some moments, so I photographed everything. Andrew's throat tightened as he looked through images of his daughter's early milestones, moments he should have shared. This was their first birthday. Mrs. Jenkins pointed to a photo of 4 babies in high chairs with tiny cupcakes. Elena could only afford 1 candle, so she moved it from cupcake to cupcake for pictures. Thank you for being there for them, Andrew said sincerely. Someone had to be, Mrs. Jenkins replied. That girl worked herself to exhaustion, cleaning offices at night with 4 babies in a wagon, taking buses to doctor's appointments in snowstorms, never complaining. Over the next week, Andrew spent more time with the quadruplets. Sophia had accepted him immediately, always climbing into his lap for stories. Olivia followed her sister's lead, showing Andrew her favorite dance moves. Emma gradually warmed up, offering him drawings and small toys. Isabella remained cautious, watching him interact with her sisters from a distance. Isabella needs time, Elena explained. She's more sensitive than the others. On Thursday afternoon, Andrew accompanied Elena and Isabella to her doctor's appointment. In the waiting room, Isabella surprised everyone by climbing onto the chair beside Andrew. My chest feels funny, she told him seriously. I'm sorry, Andrew replied. The doctor will help you feel better. Do you know my doctor? Not yet, but I'd like to meet him. When Dr. Williams called Isabella's name, Andrew asked Elena if he could join them. Are you sure? She asked. Medical appointments can be boring. I want to understand everything about her condition. In the examination room, Dr. Williams raised an eyebrow at Andrew's presence but didn't comment. He checked Isabella's breathing and frowned slightly. The current medication isn't controlling the inflammation as well as I'd like, he explained. I want to try a newer treatment, but he glanced at Elena apologetically. It's not fully covered by your insurance. How much? Elena asked. The monthly copay would be around $400. Elena's face fell. Andrew stepped forward. I'll cover it, he said firmly. Andrew, that's too much, Elena protested. It's not too much for my daughter's health. Dr. Williams looked between them curiously but continued discussing Isabella's treatment plan. After the appointment, Andrew insisted on taking them to a pharmacy to fill Isabella's new prescription immediately. I can't accept this kind of help, Elena said as Andrew paid for the medication. You're not accepting it. Isabella is, and she deserves it. Later that evening, Andrew's phone rang repeatedly with calls from Caroline. After 3 days of avoiding her, he finally answered. Where are you? Caroline demanded. You've missed 2 dinner reservations and you're not at work. I'm in Springfield, Andrew replied. Springfield? What's in Springfield? Caroline, we need to talk. Can you meet me at my hotel tomorrow? The next afternoon, Caroline arrived at the Springfield Hotel, her face tight with concern. When Andrew opened his door, she immediately noticed the children's books on his desk. What's going on, Andrew? He gestured for her to sit down. I need to tell you something important. Andrew explained everything. His relationship with Elena years ago, his parents sending him to Europe, his recent discovery of the quadruplets. Caroline listened silently, her expression shifting from confusion to shock to hurt. Show me, she finally said. Andrew pulled out his phone and showed her pictures he'd taken of the girls at the park. 4 identical little girls, Caroline said softly. They have your eyes. Yes. And you're sure they're yours? The timing matches perfectly. Plus, look at them. They have Harrison features. Caroline nodded slowly. So this is why you've been distracted? Why you called me by another woman's name? I'm sorry, Caroline. I never meant to hurt you. Caroline twisted her grandmother's ring on her finger, then slowly removed it. I think this belongs with your family. She placed the ring on the table between them. I always felt you were holding part of yourself back. Now I understand why. Caroline, it's okay, Andrew. You have responsibilities now. Those little girls need their father. She stood to leave. I hope you find happiness with your new family. After Caroline left, Andrew received a call from his father. I've consulted our attorneys, Robert said without preamble. We have a proposal for handling this situation. There's no situation to handle, Andrew replied. I have 4 daughters I'm getting to know. We need to discuss this as a family. Come to dinner tomorrow night. The following evening, Andrew drove to Boston for dinner at the Harrison mansion. His parents and their lawyers presented what Robert called a reasonable solution. We'll establish a trust fund for all 4 girls, Robert explained. Provide the best education, health care, everything they need. They'll attend private schools we select in Boston and carry the Harrison name. And Elena? Andrew asked. She'll be compensated generously for relocating to Boston. We'll find her suitable housing near our neighborhood. Andrew listened silently, then said he would discuss it with Elena. When he presented the offer to Elena the next day, her reaction was immediate. No, she said firmly. Absolutely not. The girls would have every advantage, Andrew pointed out, playing devil's advocate. They are not negotiable assets in a business deal, Elena replied angrily. Your father wants to control them just like he controls everything else. I won't give up my daughters to become Harrison accessories. Andrew nodded, secretly relieved by her answer. I agree. I just wanted to present their offer. What do you want, Andrew? Elena asked directly. I want to be their father. I want to support them and you without controlling your lives. I want to make up for the time I've lost. As they talked, Elena's phone rang. It was Mrs. Jenkins. Elena, the elderly woman said urgently. There's a very expensive car parked outside our building and a man who looks exactly like an older version of Andrew just got out. I think it's his father. Elena's phone nearly fell from her hand. Robert Harrison is here? Now? Yes, dear, Mrs. Jenkins confirmed, and he looks very determined. Andrew immediately stood up. I'll handle this. No, Elena said firmly. This is my home. I'll speak with him. A knock sounded at the door. Elena took a deep breath and opened it. Robert Harrison stood in the hallway wearing an expensive gray suit that looked out of place in the modest building. His silver hair was perfectly combed, his posture rigid. Ms. Morales, he said with a slight nod. May I come in? Elena hesitated, then stepped aside. Robert entered, his eyes scanning the small apartment. Andrew stood in the living room, his expression hard. Father, what are you doing here? I came to speak with Ms. Morales directly, Robert replied. Since you seem determined to handle this situation emotionally rather than practically. This isn't a business negotiation, Andrew said. Robert ignored him, focusing on Elena. I understand you rejected our offer. Yes, Elena said simply. Robert sighed and placed his briefcase on the kitchen table. Perhaps I wasn't clear about the benefits. The trust fund would ensure your daughters receive the best education, access to elite social circles, and eventual connections to… I understood the offer perfectly, Elena interrupted. The answer is still no. Robert's jaw tightened. Ms. Morales, be reasonable. Your daughters are Harrisons. They deserve the Harrison lifestyle. My daughters deserve to grow up happy and loved, Elena replied, not controlled and judged. Robert opened his briefcase and removed a folder. I've revised the financial terms. You would receive this amount annually, plus a housing allowance for a suitable residence in Boston. He pushed a paper toward Elena. The number written on it had many zeros. Elena didn't even look at it. Mr. Harrison, you can't buy my children. I'm not trying to buy them. I'm trying to provide for them." Elena crossed her arms. "Like you provided for me? $10,000 to disappear with your unborn grandchildren?" Robert had the grace to look uncomfortable. "That was a miscalculation." Andrew started to speak, but was interrupted by a small voice from the hallway. "Mommy? We're thirsty." All four quadruplets stood in the doorway to their bedroom, rubbing sleep from their eyes after their afternoon nap. They wore matching pajamas in their signature colors: red for Sophia, green for Isabella, blue for Olivia, and purple for Emma. Robert froze, seeing his granddaughters in person for the first time. His eyes widened as he took in their identical faces, their dark curls, the unmistakable Harrison features. Sophia, always the bravest, stepped forward and looked at Robert curiously. "Who are you?" For once, Robert Harrison seemed at a loss for words. Elena stepped in. "Girls, this is Mr. Harrison. He's a visitor." Sophia studied Robert's face carefully, then looked at Andrew. "He looks like you," she declared, "the man who reads us stories." Robert swallowed hard. "Yes, I'm Andrew's father." "Are you old?" Sophia asked bluntly. Andrew stifled a laugh while Elena gently corrected, "Sophia, that's not polite." "It's all right," Robert said, his voice softer than before. "Yes, I am rather old." The other girls moved closer, curiosity overcoming shyness. Isabella hung back slightly, observing from a safer distance. "I'm Olivia," the girl in blue announced. "I can dance. Wanna see?" Without waiting for an answer, Olivia performed a twirl that ended in a wobbly curtsy. "Very impressive," Robert said awkwardly. Emma, the quietest, stepped forward holding a picture book. "Can you read?" she asked seriously. Robert seemed confused by the question. "Yes, I can read." Emma pushed the book toward him. "Read this one. It's about elephants." Robert looked at the colorful children's book in his expensive manicured hands, clearly out of his element. Perhaps later." "We have juice," Sophia announced. "Mommy, can we have juice?" Elena nodded. "Yes, I'll get you juice. Sit at the table." The girls climbed onto their chairs while Elena poured apple juice into 4 small cups. Robert remained standing, watching the domestic scene with an unreadable expression. "Would you like to sit down, Mr. Harrison?" Helena asked, deliberately formal. Robert took a seat at the small kitchen table. His tall frame looked awkward on the simple wooden chair, his expensive suit collecting dust from the worn furniture. Elena placed juice cups in front of each girl. "Drink slowly," she reminded them. "Thank you, Mommy," they chorused in unison. Robert watched them, something shifting in his expression. The business-like demeanor he had arrived with was cracking as he observed the children up close. "They're very well behaved," he said quietly to Elena. "Thank you," she replied. "They know their manners." Sophia turned her attention to Robert. "Are you our grandpa?" she asked directly. Elena and Andrew exchanged alarmed glances. Before either could answer, Robert spoke. "Yes," he said simply. "I am your grandfather." "What's a grandfather?" Emma asked. "A grandfather is your daddy's daddy," Sophia explained confidently, "like in the books." "Is Andrew our daddy?" Olivia asked, looking confused. The room fell silent. Elena shot a warning look at both Harrison men. "Mr. Andrew is my friend who visits us," Elena said carefully. "Remember? We talked about this." Isabella, who had remained quiet, suddenly approached Robert. She studied him carefully, then offered him her stuffed elephant, the one she slept with every night and rarely shared. "This is Ellie," she said softly. "She helps when my chest hurts." Robert gently took the worn, stuffed toy. "Thank you, Isabella. That's very kind." "How do you know my name?" Isabella asked suspiciously. Your mother mentioned it," Robert said, looking to Elena for help. "Girls, why don't you show Mr. Harrison your drawings?" Elena suggested. Immediately, all 4 ran to a small desk in the corner and returned with crayon drawings, presenting them proudly to Robert. He examined each one with surprising attention, asking questions about the colorful scribbles. Andrew watched his father interact with his daughters, amazed at the transformation. He had never seen Robert engage with children on their level before. After the girls had shown all their drawings, Elena announced it was time for their bath. "But we want to play with Grandpa," Sophia protested. "Mr. Harrison has to talk with Mommy and Andrew now," Elena explained. "Bath time first." The girls reluctantly said goodbye to Robert and followed Elena to the bathroom. Andrew waited until they were out of earshot before speaking. "You see now, don't you?" he said to his father. "They're not assets to be acquired. They're children, my children." Robert nodded slowly, still holding Isabella's stuffed elephant. "They're remarkable. Elena has done an incredible job raising them alone." "Yes, she has." Robert looked around the small apartment with new eyes, noticing the carefully organized children's area, the wall of photos documenting milestones, the educational toys. "This isn't about money for her, is it?" "No, it never was." When Elena returned, she found Robert and Andrew sitting in silence. Robert stood up. "Ms. Morales, Elena, I owe you an apology," he said stiffly. "My approach to this situation has been incorrect." Elena sat down at the table. "Your grandchildren aren't a situation to be handled, Mr. Harrison. They're little girls who need stability and love." "I can see that now." Robert hesitated. "My offer still stands, but with modifications. Instead of requiring you to move to Boston, what if we purchased a more suitable home for you here in Springfield? Somewhere safer, with a yard for the girls to play. And what would you expect in return? Just the opportunity for Andrew to be near his daughters. Perhaps a separate apartment in the same house so he could be involved in their daily lives." Elena considered this. "I would maintain full decision-making authority over their upbringing?" "Yes." "And no Harrison strings attached? No insistence on private schools or specific activities?" "Those decisions would be yours," Robert agreed, "though I hope you'll allow us to establish college funds for them." Elena glanced at Andrew, who nodded encouragingly. "I'll think about it," she said finally. As Robert prepared to leave, the bathroom door opened and 4 clean, pajama-clad girls ran out to say goodbye. "Are you coming back tomorrow, Grandpa?" Sophia asked. "Would you like me to?" Robert asked, surprisingly gentle. Sophia nodded enthusiastically. The others echoed her, even Isabella. "Then I will," Robert promised. As Robert reached the door, Sophia ran to her bedroom and returned with a folded piece of paper. "I made this for you," she said, handing him a crayon drawing. Robert carefully unfolded it. The picture showed stick figures of different heights, 4 small, identical figures, 2 taller ones, and 1 gray-haired figure labeled Grandpa in wobbly letters. "Thank you, Sophia," Robert said, his voice unexpectedly hoarse. "I'll keep this in my office." After Robert left, Elena turned to Andrew. "I never expected that." "Neither did I," Andrew admitted. "I've never seen my father connect with children before. He was always too busy when I was growing up." "People can change," Elena said quietly. "Do you think you'll accept his offer about the house?" Elena sighed. "A safer home with a yard would be wonderful for the girls, and having you nearby would help them adjust to having a father." "What about having me nearby for you?" Andrew asked softly. Elena looked away. "One step at a time, Andrew. A lot has changed in 3 years." As they talked, Robert sat in his luxury car outside, staring at Sophia's crayon drawing in the glow of the streetlight. For the first time in decades, Robert Harrison, Boston's ruthless real estate mogul, felt tears forming in his eyes. Robert drove back to Boston with Sophia's drawing carefully placed on the passenger seat. Halfway home, his phone rang. Margaret's voice came through the car speakers. "Robert, where are you? You left hours ago without saying where you were going." "I went to Springfield," he answered, "to see Elena Morales and the children." "You what? Without telling me?" Margaret's voice rose. "Those are my grandchildren, too. I'll tell you everything when I get home." When Robert arrived at the Harrison mansion, Margaret was waiting in the foyer. Her face showed a mix of anger and hurt. "How could you go without me?" she demanded. Robert handed her Sophia's drawing. "They're extraordinary, Margaret. 4 identical little girls with Harrison eyes and the most direct way of speaking." Margaret studied the drawing, her fingers tracing the stick figure labeled Grandpa. "I want to meet them," she said firmly. "I'm working on a solution," Robert began. "A new house in Springfield where Andrew can—" "Not next week or next month," Margaret interrupted. "Now. Tomorrow." Before Robert could respond, the mansion's doorbell rang. Their housekeeper answered it, then appeared with a concerned expression. "Mr. Harrison, Dr. Williams is here. He insists on speaking with you immediately." "Doctor?" Williams strode into the foyer, his medical bag still in hand as if he'd come directly from work. "Robert, Margaret," he said curtly, skipping the usual pleasantries. "We need to talk about Isabella Morales." "How do you know about Isabella?" Robert asked. "Because she's my patient," Dr. Williams said. "I'm her pulmonologist. I saw security footage of Andrew visiting my office with Elena Morales. It took me a while to connect the dots, but when Caroline told me about Andrew's children, everything became clear." "William, this is a private family matter," Robert began. "A private family matter?" Dr. Williams' voice rose. "That child has struggled with asthma for years while her mother worked multiple jobs to afford medication. My daughter was engaged to Andrew while his children were living in poverty." "We didn't know about the children," Margaret said quietly. "Perhaps not." "But you knew about Elena's pregnancy, didn't you?" Dr. Williams looked directly at Robert. "Caroline told me everything. How you paid that poor woman to disappear." Robert's face hardened. "I did what I thought was best for my son." "And what about what was best for your grandchildren? For a sick little girl who needs proper medical care?" Margaret stepped forward. "William, please. We're trying to make things right now." Dr. Williams sighed. "Caroline is heartbroken, but she's also angry. Not for herself, but for those children. She says if the Harrisons don't do right by those little girls, she'll make sure everyone in Boston knows what you did." After Dr. Williams left, Margaret turned to Robert. "I'm going to Springfield tomorrow," she stated. "With or without you." "This requires careful handling," Robert protested. "No, it requires simple humanity," Margaret replied. "Those are our grandchildren, Robert. I won't wait another day to meet them." The next morning, Andrew was surprised to receive a call from his mother. "I'm coming to Springfield today," Margaret announced. "I want to meet Elena and the girls." "Mother, this isn't something we can rush. I've already missed 3 years, Andrew. I won't miss another day." After speaking with Elena, who reluctantly agreed to a meeting, Andrew arranged for everyone to gather at a private room in Riverside Restaurant, a neutral location where the children could be comfortable. Elena spent the morning preparing the quadruplets, trying to explain in simple terms who they would be meeting. "Remember Mr. Harrison who visited yesterday?" she asked as she brushed Sophia's hair. "Grandpa," Sophia said excitedly. "Yes. Today you'll meet his wife, your grandmother, and some other people who want to meet you." "Will they bring presents?" Olivia asked hopefully. "This isn't about presents," Elena said gently. "It's about meeting family." Mrs. Jenkins arrived to help dress the girls in matching blue dresses with their colored ribbons. "Are you sure you're ready for this?" she asked Elena. "No," Elena admitted. "But it's happening anyway." Mrs. Jenkins squeezed her hand. "I'm coming with you. Those Harrisons need to see that you have people on your side too." At noon, they arrived at Riverside Restaurant. Andrew was waiting outside to escort them to the private room. "My parents are already here," he warned, "and Dr. Williams and Caroline came too." Elena stopped. "Caroline? Your fiancé?" "Ex-fiancé," Andrew corrected. "She wanted to come." "Is that okay?" Elena nodded uncertainly. Andrew knelt to greet the quadruplets, who now ran to him happily. Are you excited to meet new people? He asked them. Yes, Sophia answered for all of them. Mommy says they're family. Inside the private dining room, Robert and Margaret Harrison sat stiffly at a large table. Dr. Williams and Caroline sat at the opposite end. When Elena entered with the quadruplets, everyone stood. Margaret gasped softly. The girls, identical in their blue dresses with different colored hair ribbons, looked exactly like Harrison family photos of Andrew as a child. Hello, Margaret said, her voice trembling slightly. I'm Margaret. Sophia stepped forward first, as always. Are you our grandma? Yes, Margaret answered, kneeling to the child's level despite her expensive designer suit. I'm your grandmother. You have pretty earrings, Sophia observed, reaching out to touch Margaret's pearl earrings. This simple comment broke the tension. Margaret smiled genuinely for the first time. Thank you. They were a gift from your grandfather many years ago. The other girls approached more cautiously. Emma hid partially behind Elena's legs. Isabella stayed close to Mrs. Jenkins. I'm pleased to finally meet you all, Margaret said. Your grandfather told me what beautiful girls you are. Dr. Williams stepped forward. Hello, Isabella. Do you remember me from the hospital? Isabella nodded. You helped my breathing. That's right, he smiled, then turned to Elena. Ms. Morales, I want to apologize for my part in this situation. I should have recognized the connection sooner. You've been wonderful with Isabella's care, Elena replied. There's nothing to apologize for. Caroline approached next, her expression composed despite the awkward circumstances. Elena, she said, extending her hand. I'm Caroline Williams. I wanted to meet you and your daughters. Elena shook her hand. Thank you for coming. They're beautiful children, Caroline said sincerely. They have Andrew's eyes. While Mrs. Jenkins supervised the quadruplets in an adjoining room with toys and books, the adults sat down to talk. Robert began by outlining his revised proposal. We've found a suitable property in Springfield, he said, sliding a folder toward Elena. 4 bedrooms, large yard, safe neighborhood. There's a small guest house on the property where Andrew could live. We want to establish a trust for the girls' education and future needs, Margaret added, with Elena as primary trustee. And what do you expect in return? Elena asked. Simply the opportunity to be part of their lives, Margaret answered before Robert could speak. Visits, holidays, family time, not control, just presence. Elena looked at Andrew, who nodded encouragingly. I never wanted to keep them from their family, Elena said. I just needed to protect them. From us, Robert acknowledged. I understand why now. Margaret reached across the table toward Elena. I owe you an apology. When I overheard you telling Andrew about your pregnancy, I reacted from fear. Fear of scandal. Fear of what people would say. I didn't consider you as a person, or the babies, as our grandchildren. 4 babies, Elena said softly. I was terrified when I found out. But they became my whole world. You've done an incredible job raising them, Margaret said. Anyone can see how well-adjusted and happy they are despite the difficulties. Which we caused, Robert added, surprising everyone with his admission. Our actions put you and the children in unnecessary hardship. Dr. Williams spoke up. Isabella's medical needs are significant. Her asthma requires ongoing care. I'd like to coordinate with specialists in Boston for the most advanced treatment options. Anything she needs, Robert said immediately. Caroline, who had been quiet, finally spoke. Elena, I admire your strength. Raising quadruplets alone while working multiple jobs, I can't imagine how difficult that must have been. I did what any mother would do, Elena replied. No, Caroline shook her head. You did what an extraordinary mother would do. As they continued discussing practical arrangements, a commotion came from the adjoining room. Mrs. Jenkins opened the door, her face concerned. Isabella's having trouble breathing, she announced. Everyone rushed into the playroom. Isabella sat on a small chair, wheezing heavily, her face frightened. "Her inhaler!" Elena said urgently. "It's in my purse." Margaret was closest to Elena's purse. She quickly found the inhaler and brought it to Elena, who knelt beside Isabella. "Here, sweetheart," Elena said calmly, helping Isabella use the inhaler. Slow, deep breaths. Dr. Williams knelt on Isabella's other side, checking her pulse. Her heart rate is elevated but not dangerous. Andrew crouched in front of Isabella, holding her hand. "You're doing great, Isabella. Just breathe with Mommy." Robert stood watching, his face pale with concern. Caroline filled a glass with water. Mrs. Jenkins comforted the other 3 girls who looked worried for their sister. After a few minutes, Isabella's breathing eased. The tension in the room dissolved as everyone realized she would be okay. "Better now?" Elena asked softly. Isabella nodded. "Can I have water?" Caroline brought the glass over. As Isabella drank, she looked around at all the adults who had rushed to help her. "Everyone was scared," she observed. "We were worried about you," Margaret explained, "because we care about you." Isabella considered this. "Because you're family?" "Yes," Robert answered, surprising himself. "Because we're family." The moment changed something fundamental in the group dynamic. What had been a tense negotiation became a shared concern for a child they all wanted to protect. Later, as they prepared to leave, Elena took Andrew aside. "I'll accept your father's offer about the house," she said. "The girls need a safer place, and having you nearby will be good for them." "And for you?" Andrew asked hopefully. "One step at a time," Elena replied, but her expression was softer than before. Caroline approached them. "I'm returning to California next week," she said. "I've accepted a fellowship at Stanford Medical Center." "California?" Andrew asked, surprised. Caroline nodded. "It's time for a fresh start." She looked meaningfully between Andrew and Elena. "You found your family, Andrew. Now I need to find what's next for me." As they left the restaurant, Robert watched Elena help the quadruplets into their coats, each girl receiving the same careful attention. "They have a remarkable mother," he said quietly to Margaret. "Yes," Margaret agreed. "And now they'll have their father too. And grandparents who won't make the same mistakes twice." 6 months later, the maple trees in the front yard of Elena's new home displayed bright autumn colors. The 2-story house sat on a quiet street in one of Springfield's best neighborhoods, with a large fenced backyard where 4 identical swing sets stood side by side: red for Sophia, green for Isabella, blue for Olivia, and purple for Emma. No more fighting over who got to swing first. Inside, Elena sat at the dining room table with textbooks spread around her. She was studying for her nursing program at Springfield Community College, her tuition covered by the Harrison Education Fund that Robert had established. "Mommy, look what I made!" Olivia ran in, holding a painting of what might have been a dog or possibly a horse. "It's beautiful, sweetheart," Elena said, setting aside her anatomy textbook. "Why don't you hang it on the refrigerator with your sister's art?" Olivia skipped to the kitchen, where the refrigerator was covered with colorful artwork. In the backyard, Andrew played with the other 3 girls, his business suit replaced by jeans and a sweater. Through the window, Elena could see him pushing Isabella on her swing while Sophia and Emma climbed on the small playground Robert had custom-built. The doorbell rang. Elena opened it to find Mrs. Jenkins holding a casserole dish. "I brought dinner," the elderly woman announced. "I know you have an exam tomorrow." "Mrs. Jenkins, you didn't have to do that," Elena protested, taking the dish. "Nonsense. I have all this free time in my new apartment. Might as well cook." Mrs. Jenkins now lived in a comfortable first-floor apartment 3 blocks away, in a building Robert had purchased and renovated. "How are the classes going?" Mrs. Jenkins asked, following Elena to the kitchen. "Challenging, but I love it. I never thought I'd have the chance to become a nurse." "You've always been a caretaker. Now you'll have the degree to prove it." The back door opened and Andrew entered with the three girls, cheeks pink from the cool air. "Mrs. Jenkins!" they shouted in unison, running to hug her. "Hello, my darlings," she said, bending to embrace them. "Have you been playing with your father?" The word father still sent a small thrill through Elena. After 3 months of visits as Mommy's friend Andrew, they had carefully explained to the girls that Andrew was their father. The transition had been smoother than expected, the girls accepting this new understanding with the simplicity of children. "Daddy showed us how to do underdogs on the swings," Sophia announced. "Very brave," Mrs. Jenkins nodded. "Is everyone washing hands for dinner?" As the girls raced to the bathroom, Andrew smiled at Elena. "How's the studying going?" "I'll be ready for the exam," she assured him. "How was your video conference?" Andrew had established Harrison Properties' Western Massachusetts division, working primarily from the carriage house on Elena's property. The arrangement allowed him to be present for school drop-offs, evening meals, and bedtime stories. "The Northampton development is moving forward," he said. "Father is pleased." The mention of Robert Harrison was no longer followed by tension. In the past 6 months, Robert had transformed from intimidating business mogul to doting grandfather. He and Margaret visited at least twice a month, sometimes staying in Andrew's guest room at the carriage house. After dinner, the phone rang. Elena answered to find Margaret on the line. "Elena, dear, we'll be arriving on Friday instead of Saturday," Margaret said. "Robert has a surprise for the girls." "What kind of surprise?" "A business game he created for them. He's been working on it for weeks. A child-friendly version of real estate development with colored houses and play money." Elena laughed. "He's determined to make them little businesswomen, isn't he? It keeps him busy in semi-retirement, and I've been practicing Spanish for our museum visit. How do you say beautiful artwork again?" "Obra de arte hermosa," Elena pronounced carefully. "Obra de arte hermosa," Margaret repeated. "I want to explain things properly when I take them to the Hispanic Heritage exhibit." After the call, Andrew helped Elena with the bedtime routine. Each girl needed individual attention, a different story, a special tucking-in ritual, a unique good-night phrase. By the time all 4 were asleep, it was nearly 9 o'clock. "They're excited about their birthday," Andrew said as they sat in the living room. Sophia asked if she could have a red cake. "All 4 want different colored cakes," Elena smiled. "I told them we'd have one cake with 4 colored sections." "Very diplomatic," Andrew approved. "My mother wants to bring professional photographers. As long as they don't turn it into a society event, I want the girls to enjoy their day." Andrew took Elena's hand. "They will. Everyone understands this is about family, not appearances. Family. The word had expanded for all of them. What began as Elena and her daughters now included Andrew, his parents, Mrs. Jenkins, and even occasional visits from Dr. Williams, who continued to oversee Isabella's improving asthma condition. "Isabella's breathing has been better," Elena noted. "The new medication is working. And this house doesn't have the mold issues the apartment had," Andrew added. "Dr. Williams said that was probably contributing to her symptoms." They sat in comfortable silence, Elena studying her notes while Andrew reviewed work documents. This evening routine had become precious to them. Quiet togetherness after the chaos of raising quadruplets. The weekend arrived with perfect October weather. Margaret and Robert came bearing gifts, of course, despite Elena's requests for moderation. "Just educational toys," Robert insisted, carrying bags into the house. Margaret hugged Elena. "The house looks lovely. Those curtains are new, aren't they?" "Yes, I made them last week." "You made them? I'm impressed." The relationship between Elena and Margaret had evolved slowly. Initial awkwardness gave way to mutual respect, then genuine affection. Margaret had been humbled by Elena's forgiveness, while Elena appreciated Margaret's sincere efforts to connect with her granddaughters. Robert spread his business game on the dining table, calling the girls over with excitement that matched theirs. "This game teaches you how to build houses and sell them," he explained. "Just like Harrison Properties, but fun for children." "I want to build red houses," Sophia declared. "I'll build green ones," Isabella added. Robert beamed at them. "Excellent. Now, when you build houses, you need to think about location." Margaret stood beside Elena, watching Robert interact with the girls. "He's changed so much," she said softly. "I never saw him play with Andrew like this." "People can grow at any age," Elena replied. The next morning, Andrew took the girls to the park while Elena and Margaret prepared for the birthday party. Several neighborhood children had been invited, along with their parents and the now extended Harrison Morales family circle. "Do you think 4 identical birthday cakes is excessive?" Margaret asked, surveying the kitchen where 4 cakes sat in different colors. "Probably," Elena laughed, "but it will make them happy." "That's what matters," Margaret agreed. When the guests arrived, the backyard transformed into a celebration space. Mrs. Jenkins directed games while Robert proudly showed off the playground he had designed. Dr. Williams arrived with a special asthma-friendly bubble machine for Isabella, who could now participate in activities that once triggered her breathing problems. "She's doing remarkably well," he told Elena. "The treatment plan is working perfectly." Jack Thompson, the social worker who had helped Elena navigate assistance programs during those difficult early years, arrived with gifts for each girl. "I can't believe how much has changed," he told Elena. "You've created an amazing family." "We all did," Elena corrected, watching Andrew help Emma blow bubbles. The highlight of the party came when the 4 birthday cakes were presented: red, green, blue, and purple, each with 4 candles. The quadruplets stood together, identical faces glowing in the candlelight. "Make a wish," Elena instructed. The girls closed their eyes, then blew together. Everyone applauded as the candles went out. Later, when the party had wound down and only family remained, Robert asked for everyone's attention. He stood somewhat nervously, holding a glass of lemonade. "I have an announcement," he said. "Harrison Properties is establishing the Harrison Family Foundation. Its mission will be supporting single parents and children's education throughout Massachusetts." Elena looked surprised. "That's wonderful, Robert." "It's long overdue," he admitted. "Elena will serve as our first board member if she's willing." "I would be honored," she said sincerely. Robert continued, "I spent my life building wealth for my family, but I almost missed what family really means." He looked at his granddaughters playing in the yard. "These girls taught me that lesson." As evening approached, the quadruplets grew tired from all the excitement. After Robert and Margaret left, promising to return soon, Elena and Andrew put the girls to bed. "Daddy?" Sophia asked sleepily as Andrew tucked her in. "Yes, sweetheart? Are you going to live in our house forever now?" Andrew glanced at Elena, who stood in the doorway. "I live in the carriage house, remember? But I'll always be close by." "But when will you marry Mommy?" "Olivia's friend has a mommy and daddy who live in the same house." Andrew looked startled. Elena bit her lip to hide a smile. "That's a conversation for another time," Elena said gently. "Sleep now." After all 4 girls were asleep, Andrew and Elena sat on the back porch steps. The autumn evening was cool but pleasant. "Sophia asks a lot of direct questions," Andrew said. "She gets that from her father," Elena teased. They sat in comfortable silence before Andrew spoke again. "She's not wrong, you know. About us living in the same house someday." Elena looked at him. "Andrew, I'm not rushing," he assured her. "I know we're still rebuilding what we had. But I want you to know that I love you. I never stopped loving you." Elena took his hand. "I kept your picture all those years. Even when I was angriest at you, I couldn't let it go. The girls needed to know their father's face, but I also needed to remember. And now we're creating something new, Elena said. Something stronger because it's built on truth. As the stars appeared above them, Andrew and Elena remained on the porch steps, holding hands and talking softly about their daughters, their growing feelings, and the future they now faced together. A future where the Harrison legacy was no longer measured in buildings or bank accounts, but in the laughter of 4 identical little girls who had changed everything. If you enjoyed today's video, I'm sure you'll love the next one. Don't waste time. Just click on the screen